Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm out here walking in the wet field with my sandals. There's the evidence. But these sandals actually keep my feet pretty well protected. They just never seem to get wet, even when I'm wearing socks. Perhaps I'm protected by the Lord. Now I'm going to make this video in half jest, and hopefully people don't take it too seriously. I've made it a point to stay away from politics and what's going on with, the current administration especially, because I just really want no part of it anymore. I spent a little bit of time kind of looking into all the crap they've done and they're doing, and it's just, honestly, my mental health is very important to me. And I realized that it was frustrating me and not angering me, because, and that's what I wanted to talk about here. You have to enjoy the circus, okay? And every part of it. Like, anytime I'm in a situation, no matter how bad it is, or no matter how much I disagree with it, I kind of acknowledge I'm there for a reason. That I believe life has purpose, situations have purpose, and when things are out of our control, it's better to just not let them affect us as much as possible. I mean, obviously. And I acknowledge that some people are more prone and more sensitive to many of these topics, and if you're one of those people, you probably just should stay away from politics completely. I would say that there's a good portion of the population who really just shouldn't watch the news at all, or look into anything that's controversial or political topics. But for most people, we're curious. We want to know what's going on, and so we're constantly immersed in it, whether we like it or not, right? And better make sure this is tight, because I noticed that it was making little sounds as it was shaking last time. So, as I said, I've been avoiding political shit, but, YouTube now has become just consistent slop, and it fills my feed with ads for all this, all kinds of right and left-wing nonsense that I want no part of. And I got this one today that this is what inspired me to share, and it's just too good. It's Fox News, and it says, Christmas comeback. President Trump, better put my glasses on here. Here it is. Yeah, got a picture of Trump, and he's going, and it says, Christmas comeback. President Trump declares the return of Merry Christmas, a nod for Americans to feel unafraid to share their Christian faith openly this holiday season. And then it shows him, in quotations, said, we're saying Merry Christmas again. Now, for any of you out there who have been alive for more than 10, 15 minutes, I'm sure you're well aware of this tactic. This is used every year. I mean, every single year. Since I've been aware of, this kind of crap, it's been so consistent that it's just hilarious. I mean, I just laugh at it. And when you start to see these patterns, and you see these things repeated over and over, and these tactics repeated, you start to understand that really, it's not going to change. There's always going to be this fear of persecution that people are going to use. This is really the central theme here. The fear of persecution is strong with people. If you can cause them to fear that others want them harmed, then that's one half of the equation, right? To getting people to comply with whatever you want them to do. Lucy, no, you stay out, no. See, she's trying to get out the fence, and I locked it up tight now. No, you can't get through there anymore, sorry. No, you stay out. Come. No, come on. No. Sorry, I won't cut that out, because that's life, and I don't have the time. But anyhow, this isn't meant to insult anybody with anybody's beliefs or anybody's, look, whatever you've found to make you content in this crazy thing we call life, I say go for it. I say I'm all for it. But there's one aspect that needs to be discussed, and that is the victimization or the victimhood, the victim mentality. You can see it very strongly in one particular nation right now, much more than the US. And I won't even get into that one, because by saying it by name, I'll be instantly have this video pushed to the bottom. So I'll just put it this way. Yes, there's Christian persecution. Yes, around the world and in the US, there are people who dislike them. But there is persecution of every belief system in every nation. This is the way it's always been. As to how much harm is actually done physically, that's a different story. But in the US, there's no physical persecution of Christians at all. And whew, that hill takes my breath, dude. It's a lot steeper than it looks getting up here. Wow. Every time I walk up, it just gets my legs stronger. So I'm not a Christian myself. You'll notice I wear a cross with a circle around it. It has a different meaning to me. It's the intersection and the cycle of life, but they're my own personal beliefs and my own system, my own version of God. I don't try to justify it or explain it to anybody. I don't try to prove myself to anybody, right? Because I have enough conviction in my own faith to be 100% convinced that there's no interest in converting anybody, because there's nothing to convert anybody to. I don't believe that the whole world should believe the same thing. I think that God connects with us in different ways. The same way that, through the generations, people who have had sleep paralysis. I was listening to something about that earlier, and how in some cultures it's they're demons sitting on your chest. In other cultures, they're the succubus. And how after the whole UFO craze, it became aliens, for us. She better not have jumped the fence or run away, or I will be whooping her butt. There she is. There she is. Good girl, you stay. You don't run away. She killed all the neighbors' chickens like a month ago, so I have to keep her well locked up. Anyway, so as I said, the Christians aren't being persecuted. In this country, physically, it's a fear of mental persecution. It's a fear of losing numbers. But when you allow pastors and priests, whatever, to stand up, look at these rocks we uncovered, aren't they awesome? When you allow them to stand up on stage and just scream at the audience that, they need to donate more money, and that if people go hungry, that's their own fault, and that if you vote a certain way, you're a demon. These are the most despicable human beings, on the planet, right? To me. These are the, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. When I was a kid, I think I was 10, 12 years old, and I remember seeing them and my dad making some joke about her makeup, and I was like, who are these people? They're up there telling people to give their money to them. Okay, what are they doing with this money? And you find out these people are flying around on jets and using God as a way to scare people. And so my whole life I thought, and that was the funniest part. There was actually a comment that I actually took a screenshot of because it was so good regarding that Christmas thing. The comment said, oh, the old War on Christmas bit, dusting off the old classics. Can't believe this stuff still works. And I was like, that's exactly how I feel. I really can't believe it still works. I can't believe that there are still people that fall for this crap. Like the fact that nobody wants to say Merry Christmas anymore. And the point I was going to make, I'm a non-Christian, but I have a strong respect for Christ as a figure. Whether you believe a metaphor or a person, doesn't matter to me. But if you go around screaming to people that unless they take your version of Christ as the one true Christ, that they're going to be doomed somehow, then it's never going to work. You're never going to get people to respect you, and people will continue to leave the church in droves if that's the attitude. So I've heard people say that there's a revival of Christianity in this country. If there is, so be it. But from what I understand, that's actually statistically not true. It's a lot of people are switching churches. A lot of people are changing from one faith to another. But most people are very, in their own words, spiritual in some way, shape, or form. And this is important to understand, because those of us who have kind of more of an, I guess, I kind of approach more of an Eastern mysticism type, I believe that, but also like, I believe in like this, I'm trying not to use terminology like pleroma, and, but the all is how like the Hermetic tradition defines God, as the all with a capital A, right? It's all we can do. It's the best we can do. We don't really have a better term. It encompasses everything. But within that God, there are layers, right? And each layer has its own distinct kind of hierarchy. And this is how we get into the whole idea of angels and demons and everything else. And look, I don't know how any of that stuff works. But the point I was making is that a lot of us do believe in these things, but just aren't so arrogant to think that we know the truth behind it. God is mysterious, right? And to have people say, well, your belief isn't good enough because it doesn't agree with what my book says literally or how I interpret it, it's only going to hold us back from connecting on that deeper level, if that makes sense. And I know a lot of Christians realize this. There are also, Christian mystics and a whole variety of different viewpoints. I mean, I've had an experience with what, to me, revealed itself as Christ. But it was an energy, a form, an idea, an archetype. And I understood at that moment that, it's too easy to take everything literally for people. But it doesn't matter, whatever you believe, you believe. And I definitely wouldn't put people's beliefs down just because they believe something different than I do, unless that belief is harmful in the sense that it promotes fear. And this is where I wanted to make my main point. As I said, the fear, scaring people into thinking they're going to be, that they're not good enough unless they believe what you believe is one thing, but threatening them with eternal damnation, that puts a bad taste in people's mouth. In fact, I watched a video a while back. There's a channel called Holy Kool-Aid with a K, and he's a smaller YouTuber. He's not that small. I think he's got like 100,000 subscribers, maybe more. Anyway, he's an ex-Christian. His parents were missionaries, and then he was a missionary, and then he went to like Bible college, and they went to the, he was talking about in this camp when he. They heard a weird sound in the cabin, and the hair stood up on their arms, so they thought it was a demon, and they spent all night singing and praying and then thinking they scared the demon away, and how he used to have later on he'd have like night terrors, or rather sleep paralysis. And actually that's what made me think about how different generations see different things. Modern generations might see an alien abduction, whereas you used to see a demon. And what I'm getting at there is we interpret, these experiences differently. We interpret God differently. And that's where everybody needs to kind of come together on this idea. It's like in the Masons, the Freemason Lodge, you just have to believe in God to be a member, but you don't have to believe in any specific God. Because they understood that, all men who answer to a higher calling do so quietly for the most part. The ones who are out there bragging and claiming that they are the closest to God, I will guarantee you that every single one of them is a fraud. And they're either a fraud and they don't know it, or they damn well know it. Anybody who claims they need 2 jets, private jets, because they don't want to fly with people, quote, in a tube with demons. That was Kenneth Copeland. And this is from a guy who looks like a demon. And just what shocks me is that people still believe it. They believe it because the fear is primal. It's built into us. We're genetically predisposed, to be scared because it helped us survive. But we have to overcome that fear. We have to overcome that bias and realize that we're not the ones that are persecuted. Everyone has a hard time sometimes. That our belief system might not be the only one, and that's okay. And that we need to learn to be secure in our insecurity. Because there are no simple guidebooks to life. As much as people highly revere the Bible, and I respect that, and I've been reading it actually. Lately I kind of broke away, and I've been listening to an audiobook of like Enoch and many of the Dead Sea Scrolls, at least what they have. These stories are interesting, but a lot of them, they're just people writing these stories. Whether they were divinely connected or not, who knows? But we're talking about hundreds of years apart, okay? Like these aren't just one book written by some divinely inspired guy. This was, dozens, if not more, of people that were writing different stories, and they were all compiled and put together a couple hundred years later, and then the Council of Nicaea came in and decided which ones to leave out. And that's not to belittle it. The point is, it endured this long because there are some interesting teachings and parables and lessons to be learned. I wouldn't go as far as saying that, like some people think it's all like encoded secrets within the numbers of the pages, and who knows, maybe there's some of that within it, or at least the original. But when you have a book that is so revered by so many, yet has been translated, from Latin into Greek into, English eventually, we are going to miss a lot of the nuance and a lot of that deeper understanding of the mystical side of it. And it's a beautiful thing. God comes in so many forms. You can find that energy within yourself and realize that you're connected. And you might, if you're fortunate in your life, at least one time, you will have an experience of complete, I'd like to call it satori. I hate to use that term. But that's kind of a mini enlightenment. You might call it almost like an epiphany. I think it doesn't do it justice. At one time, you may reach a point in your mind, at least, where you see the duality for what it is. That you whether you meditate, there's a lot of ways to do it. You could sit in a dark cave for a week, or psychedelics, whatever works for a person. But to get to a point where you and the world become the same, where you and God become the same, and you realize how important you are, and yet how unimportant you are at the same time. And at this point, all of that guilt, all of that fear, it's just gone. You'll still have concerns about your daily life. Of course, you've got to get things done. But the existential fear, memento mori, remember you will die, these things don't scare you anymore. Most people will tell you they don't fear death, they just fear dying, or the process of dying slowly. And I get that too. But, and some would even say that dying slowly is a blockage, like it's something you're doing improperly, that's not, why your body goes into decline. There are so many different viewpoints on this. Some people won't even go to the doctor, and they say, well, God will fix it, and it's in his hands. Others, like myself, will say, well, if we have modern science and modern technology that will allow us to live a little longer, to cure a disease that we otherwise can't fix, then, go for it. Because ultimately we are God. We are in, at least a part of God, rather. Because when you say we are God, a lot of people take that offensively and don't understand what it really means. No, it doesn't mean that you are God and powerful. It means that you're just part of the whole, that we all are. Me, the barn, the train tracks, the clouds, the mist in the valley over there. We're all one, my friends. So I love you all. I really do. And I would just like to say that I would also like to thank today's sponsor, Nature. I figure it's worth throwing in a sponsor every now and again, because I forget how many people won't do a video, and they will tell you how they had to have I saw a video earlier. It was a pretty decent video, but he threw in a sponsorship for an AI training platform, and he had to leave like a pinned comment like, I know I've got a lot of bad feedback about the AI thing, but hey, if it weren't for the the ads, or if it weren't for the sponsorships, I couldn't do these videos. And every time I see that, I think, I get that, but that's not true. You could do these videos. I've been doing free videos for 15 freaking years. Sure, I'd like to make some money off of it one day, but you don't have to take an AI sponsor. And the funny part was, I just thought it just shows me, thankfully, that people are really turning against these AI bullshit sponsorships, and AI itself, because as a tool it can be amazing for research and medical, and hell, that'll become its own religion. But it's also being abused, of course, to sell you a bunch of junk and tell you that this little old man in Italy is dying, but he made his last pair of boots handmade out of leather, and they want to send them to you for only 25 bucks. Just completely AI generated stories and people, and everyone's kind of, losing their mind because we're starting to question reality. And I think that's why, this is so important to me, talking about these things, because we need to pull our heads out of our butts and stop fighting about what we think God is or truth is, and start looking at each other and looking within and finding who we really are and what our, what fulfills us. And that, I believe, will make the world a better place. So thanks again to nature for sponsoring this video, and I just love that place. You got to visit sometime. Much love.